Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soul fire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soul fire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Soul Fire Wisdom and Totally Awesome. Talk about something or try something new and talk about it Tuesday. So we're having a kind of rainy day here in Seattle. Summer doesn't actually start here usually until July, so we get a lot of rain normally in June with the sun peeking in every once in a while. So this is one of those gray days. So what I tried this week is I tried an electric foot massager from Sharper Image. And I've always been a big believer in reflexology and foot massage and foot vibration. I actually, a long time ago, I had this pair of slippers that vibrated. And although they weren't supposed to have any therapeutic value, it just felt wonderful after, you know, you were on your feet all day or your feet were a little sore, to put my feet in those slippers, and they just vibrated, and I guess they had a little warming feature too. So anyway, I ordered this shizitsu shoe massager, foot massager, and it also had a warming feature. But I tried it and it didn't feel either like an actual massage or it didn't even feel as good as my vibrating slippers used to. So, you know, I actually wasn't very impressed with it. I'm going to have to send it back and get something else because I am looking for that just relaxing vibration that makes your feet feel better when you've been on them for a long time. So we have a great show planned for today. My guest is Dr. Patricia Boulogne, and she is a science-based wellness expert known as Dr. Pat. She's a certified functional medicine practitioner, a coach, a chiropractor, an acupuncture practitioner, speaker, and an author. She's helped thousands of people in the last 3.5 decades to stop adapting their lifestyles to pain and chronic problems by focusing on the whole person. The result is that her clients, patients, find out the why and the cause behind their problems. Identifying this begins that health journey to live longer, better, and healthier. She is the founder and principal of AskDrPat Health Team Network, a company dedicated to skyrocketing health, lifestyle, mindsets with strategies and programs that make sense and help you age gracefully, think, move, and feel better to live longer and happier. She's the author of the best-selling book, Why Am I Sick, Fat, and Tired? So we're going to talk about her book, why she wrote it, and how it helps people with their health challenges. And so I'm going to introduce her now, and whoops. Shoot. There we are. Hello, Dr. Pat. How are you?
Hi, you found me.
Yes, a little trouble there.
I always have problems with electronics. It's just not in my world. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invite to join you today. I've been looking forward to it since we first connected. And I'm ready to jump in and talk about how we can get sick people well and well people to maintain their wellness.
Yes, I started your book and I'm loving it so far. So can you tell us a little more about yourself and what brought you to your current path?
Well, I had a practice on Cape Cod, and it was an idyllic place to practice. And when I first started practicing as a chiropractor, I did traditional things that chiropractors do. You adjust your patients and you hope they get well, and you hope they tell somebody else, and they usually come to you for pain. But I started having people come to me and ask me about, like, I have allergies because Cape Cod's full of mold. And how do I get, better if it's just like, I've got to go to my OBGYN. What should I tell them? What kind of questions should I ask? So I started getting much more integrated and more involved in my patients' life.
Mm-hmm.
And I had patients who had, situations that went on, and that common sense told me it wasn't something that I do, but I was able to find the right person for them to connect with them so that they get the answers that they needed, so that in the information and knowledge that they needed, so they could make better decisions. So my practice evolved from, being a traditional chiropractic practice to going into sports medicine, to going and specifically and ending, quite frankly, in lifestyle, functional, nutritional medicine. That really enhanced and it looked more, I cut it to a deeper level. Mm-hmm. So that one of my mentors in chiropractic always said, what you got isn't necessarily what you got. And the Chinese say that too. Being that Chinese education I have, they always, they look at reasons why people have something, as opposed to, oh, you have high blood pressure, take this drug. They say, why do you have high blood pressure? And what's causing it? And so it's kind of the same thing with the functional medicine and lifestyle medicine. What's really causing the problem? Because it really isn't what the name of the disease is. It's what you've done in your environment, and how you participated in that, and what you ate, what you thought, what you drank, what you ate, and putting that all together, that contributes to where we're at now.
Definitely. So your book is Why Am I Sick, Fat, and Tired? And so everybody wants to know that, of course, but what is your book about, and what motivated you to write it?
Well, first off, I'm going to explain the title. Why are you sick, fat, and tired? I had somebody in a business group say to me, Pat, I'm not sick, I'm not fat, and I'm not tired. So why would I want to buy your book? And my book is a guidebook, and it's a workbook, and it's a book of questions. And it's systematically takes you from point A and gets you to point Z. It lets you discover where your weakest and strongest health links are. And it does it by looking at your organ systems. So your organ systems are like a Swiss watch. All the pieces of the puzzle have got to work together. And when they don't, one starts to slow down, your Swiss watch starts to break down, and one part affects the other. So how our bodies work, you can't have something going great and not or start to falter and not have it someplace else. Like, for instance, like when I told people to take aspirin for like for their heart, for people who have cardiovascular problems. And that was great for the heart, but it's very bad for your blood vessels, because it thins your blood, it thins the lining, and people started having strokes. And at the time when they told people that, stroke was not even on the top 10 list of why people die in this country, but it's right up there like now, and it has remained up there since then. So my book, if you're tired, if you're fat, but the sick part takes time to develop. So what it does is it gives someone the opportunity to take a look at where their health snapshot is right now. And because for me, I would want to know if I have something lurking below the surface, so I can tackle it, do targeted supplementation, get some really strong advice to what's the best way for me to diminish those signs and symptoms. And also to, it's like, what can I do to be better? Because I don't want to end up where I have such a weak immune system that when something like a flu goes around, I'm going to get it and I'm going to die because I have not, my immune system has been taxed for so long from other parts and organ systems in my body. So
Yeah.
it's, and it will give somebody that definitive look at that. And also it's important to understand that your health patterns, there's 11 organ systems, and you can have a high number in 2 or 3 of those systems and have lower numbers someplace else, but you have to decide where to start that health journey. And that's what this book shows you definitively, is where can I start today to take better care of myself.
Great. So you refer to people who are sick and don't know it. You just mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
Who are they and what do you mean by that?
Well, in my experience, there's a lot of people who I call it Grim Reaper syndrome. And a lot of people have signs and symptoms that they ignore. They will tell you, like, I have digestive problems. So I'm talking to my friends who are maybe 10 years older than me, and they go, oh, I had that when I was your age. It goes away. And then a little while down the road, you realize that's your new normal. And so when you're looking at it, and in Chinese medicine, you learn how to like read people's faces and look at exterior signs. So, when I walk around, sometimes I can see people, the color of their skin, when someone tells me that they're only 50, but they look like they're 65, there's things that make you that make you age. And when you get sick, which is caused by trauma, toxins, or thoughts, then in a nutshell, then how your body plays that out in your environment, will show you really where that sickness is going. So it's just like that's why you say what you got isn't what you got. And it's on the same principle as like a rose bush, for instance, blooming. It doesn't all bloom at the same time. There's different temperatures on part of the rose bush that make it work. So when you're faltering your immune system or faltering your body, it might be able to do that for a while, but it's not going to do it forever. And pretty soon you have to pay the Grim Reaper, for those types of things, like eating sugar, excessive amounts of sugar, alcohol, and bad fast food, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. It catches up with you.
Yeah, it does.
So who is the target audience for your book? Is there a specific age group, specific conditions, or?
Well, interestingly enough, one of my editors for my book was an 11-year-old kid. And the reason why I had an 11-year-old kid read my book is I wanted anybody to be able to read this book and answer the questions in it. So I gave him a highlighter, and I told him I'd give him $50 if he went through the whole book and highlighted any word and then helped me come up with a word that he understood.
Oh.
So, that was, everyone laughs at that when I tell them that, but that's a true story. And so it's for, anybody. I tell people that this is a great book to have as a reference book. It's a great book to do like on, New Year's Day. Like, if you're going to make New Year's resolutions, make them where they count, and make your goals where they count so that you have something, you're moving in a direction of positivity and not negativity. Because a lot of times you read a book and go, oh, I should be taking melatonin because I want to go to sleep. Well, the problem is about melatonin, it changes the chemical configuration in the body for other drugs or other chemicals that interact with it. So where you're thinking that you're doing something good, you might be ultimately doing something bad because of that chemical change. And so if it's to make you go to sleep and you're looking at tryptophan and serotonin, if you're looking at improving your immune system, it starts in your gut. The highest amount of serotonin in the body is the gut. It's not in the brain. Depression starts in the gut. It isn't a brain problem. And so you have to take a look at, where are those things? Where's my weakest link? Which is your highest score.
Yeah.
And a high priority, or where was that? And, and then, you have to buffer it. So, you're looking at like diet first, exercise, targeted supplementation, Sometimes people ask me, oh, do I have to take this supplementation forever? Sometimes you might want to, depending upon what it is. Other times you're just working on, if it's targeted, you're working on a specific organ system to get it back up to snuff. It might be deficient. It's like going to the bank and not having money in your bank. What you want to do is you want to replenish that money or replenish your bank for your body so that you can have a better, when you respond, you've got something to respond with. That kind of thing.
So, is there one specific lifestyle change that people make that you would say impacts their health the most?
Well, my 5 pillars of health are diet, exercise, proper sleep, proper mental attitude, and a properly functioning spine. So that's biomechanics, structures, function. So, when you're looking at, when I used to speak in my office and give lectures, people were always very smiley, but anytime I ever talked about diet, their smiles went off their faces because they're going like, God, they just didn't know. No one ever told them. Mm-hmm. And so if I would tell people, I go, read labels, stay hydrated, drink good water, good thoughts, because thoughts can undo anything that you structurally take care of, like at a chiropractor, like osteopath, wherever you go to have some spinal alignment. And I don't know if your listeners know or not, but 9 out of 10 births have some type of trauma that has some level of inflammation in the neck. Mm-hmm. That's huge. If you're looking around at 10 people, at least 9 of them has some issue with it. So that's the reason why you would go to have your mechanics checked out by a chiropractor who's a specialist in that. And then you look at toxins. If you can't pronounce something on a label, you shouldn't eat it. And so, there's a picture of like someone goes, well, can I have, if I can't drink Diet Coke because it has aspartame in it, or NutraSweet, or wherever they change the name to so you don't know what it is, can I have regular Coke? And I said, they're crap. They're both crap. They're horrible for you. And, can you drink it every once in a while, like maybe like Christmas or something? But it's looking at what you put in your body's a sanctuary. So choosing foods that are high quality are really important. If you, in this day and time, you really need to, look at organic, no GMOs. And read labels. Nobody ever likes to go grocery shopping with me because I pick up everything and I read the label. And like when you go to a regular grocery store, stick to the outside of the grocery store. If you start going down the aisles, that's the stuff that's, going to really do harm to you if you eat it on a continual basis.
Yeah. So you would say it's a combination of things and not one thing that really stands out?
Right. I mean, you got to take a look at your diet. You got to take a look at what is involved in your lifestyle. On my website, there's a wheel of life. In the wheel of life, it shows you, it's downloadable, it's free. It shows you where in your wheel of life, whether it's like education, whether it's work, friendship, family, whatever, travel, it will show you where that weak link is even in that type of thing. So it's like, so that's where I need to work on, and so it will give you focus, because if you know where the issue's at, then you can research where you can find solutions for that. And you always want to, like, if the solution doesn't make sense to you, ask somebody, someone you can always get in touch with me, but you just like use common sense. Does this make sense to me? Ask questions. Like if you go to the doctor, why, how does that work? And that type of thing, so that if you choose to go down whatever path you go down, you can make the right choice based upon correct information in a very precise, more definitive way.
Yes. Is there one recommendation that you would make to people as they age to help them live longer and healthier?
Don't eat sugar.
Okay.
Sugar, I have been, years ago, I've said that to patients of mine more than once. And I would tell people to eat more vegetables than fruit. Have the 5 servings, but have those servings be vegetables. you get better micronutrients in them than, and then eat in a regular fashion. So like, meaning like, if you don't have breakfast, if you're fasting for whatever reason, then, make your ritual. So like when you first get up in the morning, hydrate. That would be the most important thing to do in the morning. First hydrate, then do the rest of your day. Do your exercises or read or whatever that you do in the morning, but create rituals so that you have something to always rely on, and, that you can go back and put in your bank. And then look at, if you're looking at, like, for instance, eating out and you're trying to avoid certain food, then don't order it. If you're trying, like, not to eat bread, then when the bread comes to the table, ask them to take it away. And put lemon in your water, because the lemon does a lot of really cool things. It helps the right acid of the stomach. It helps the gallbladder do its job. It helps the liver do its job. So it helps you, it's a natural detoxifier. And something to be mindful in this country, especially of, is heavy metals, because they're in a lot of things, and there's a lot of different, ways that people tell you you can get rid of them. But heavy metals go deep. They go into blood, bone, brain, and fat. And they're hard to get out of your system. And most detox processes for that only take those metals out of your intestinal tract. They don't have really a way to get past the intestinal tract in order to do that. I only know of one product that does that.
So how is the best way to keep from getting them in the first place?
You need to take a look at organic food, drink good water, and like when you're eating, make sure that, as you get older, you have less acid in your stomach. So like most people need a digestive aid, and picking something that makes like sense or makes them so they don't feel bloated, having floaters in the eye that people have. Doctors will tell you that that's a normal part of aging, but that's not normal. They're not supposed to be there. And they're there because there's, things collecting and coagulating in the body. But you have to read labels, eat clean food, as clean as possible. It's not always possible financially, but you can make better choices.
Yes, definitely. So at what age should people start paying attention to how they're aging and try to take better care of themselves? Is there a specific age, or should, people be starting?
Well, I think that people, I think you start to age as soon as you're born. So if you have wise parents, your parents, and if they're very fond of food and very fond of their health, they're going to teach their children well. And you can change your constitution by eating better. So the likelihood of a genetic disposition to playing out becomes less. When, I see people like young girls who have lines on their face, and they don't even have, they're very pale, or they have pale skin, their skin is thin. They have to be really careful about being in the sun and that exposure. And you need to have sunlight around 20 minutes a day, but you have to have it, the sun's got to hit fleshy parts of your body in order for you to get the vitamin D from, because we have a vitamin D deficiency in this country. And so there's so many people, they stay in too much, they're not outside and that type of thing. So there's not, and also if you're going to use sunscreen, you have to watch out for what the ingredients, like the parabens that are in there, are not good for you. So when you see something that on an ingredient list that has a PEG in it, they will see PEG 7 or something like that. Those kind of things age you, because what they do is they're a petrochemical that like draws whatever you put on your skin, which absorbs 65% of what you have. So if the outside is your outer layer that you're trying to make look good, then you have to be really careful about what those ingredients are, because PEGs drive the ingredient inside the body. And those a lot of times are not like PEG 5s, PEG 7s. Some of them are considered to be quite carcinogenic. It was long use. It isn't like you use it
Yeah.
one time,
Yeah.
but a lot of people use their skin products for years.
So are supplements like, okay, we don't get enough sun, so we take vitamin D. Are those supplements effective?
They are. I mean, they've been shown to be effective. Even they come in different forms. Like buying them from a quality company is important, but you can get them in liquid form.
Mm-hmm.
Which sometimes for some people is a little bit easier to digest, and you can get them in pill form. So depending upon doing some level of analysis for your blood workup to see where there's an imbalance. And then always when you're checking that imbalance, like if you're like low in zinc, then something else has got to be high. So looking at like, well, where can I get zinc in my foods? Well, zinc is really high in oysters, if you like oysters. But, there's other ways to get, zinc in other foods. But you just have to, it takes a little bit of homework on your part to be able to look at that. But things that you put on your body, things that you breathe, you have to be really quite careful of in your environment, like cleaning, things that you clean your house with, and the such with those kind of things too. You've got to take a look at what are those ingredients, and what's the side effect of some of those ingredients. So I always like look at inert ingredients, especially as people look at the bottle of a supplement, and it will always, they'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they'll have on the bottom inert ingredients, like methyl salicylate or something like that, and then you kind of, well, what's that? I can't even hardly pronounce it. And so I always tell people to look it up, look at what you're putting into your body and feeding it. You wouldn't, when you have a garden, you want your garden to grow. You've got to do the same thing with your body.
Yes, and you got to pay attention to what you put on your garden.
Yep. And also like when you're looking at, a family disposition, for something, not everybody in the family gets it. So you've got to ask like, well, how come their gene pool is playing out in that particular way? So I always tell people when they say they have that that disposition for it, but if you eat the same way that your parents ate, more than likely you will get what your parents and your grandparents had.
Mm-hmm.
Because those old habits die hard.
Yeah, you can have a predisposition and still not end up with that particular ailment.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and you can change your constitution by the type of foods, and type of diet that you choose. If there's foods that, there's some foods that people can be sensitive to, and they don't know they're sensitive to them. So I know of a story of a woman who was very sensitive to avocados. Her avocados for her, which it took them 10 years to figure it out, made her have blood in her stools.
Oh.
And and so when they went in, they took a food test, like a reactivity test. They found that was a very high priority food not to have in her diet. When they took those foods out, her intestinal tract healed. And what's cool about the intestinal tract is that it heals very quickly. If it's not beyond repair and damage, then, you can do some really very good things with just changing what you eat, what you think. Because people get stressed. And when they get stressed, it interferes with how they digest their food. If you ever know when you got upset, and you ate something, you just feel horrible for the rest of the night. Right?
Yes. It actually goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, your how you eat can affect, how you feel, which can affect how you think, and the opposite works too. If you're thinking all these stress thoughts, it's going to affect how your body is working.
Yeah, for sure. It's all interrelated. That goes back to like that Swiss watch principle. So that when you're eating things and if you're not digesting them, they're just flying through your system, then you're not getting any nutrients from that. And you can do that for a little bit, but you can't do that for a long while without having other issues.
Yeah.
Which you would usually see some of those signs as early aging.
Yes.
Because you need to have those nutrients in order to have good skin.
Definitely. So you ask people to complete a health status chart. So what do you do with this information?
Well, when you get the book and you finish the book, there is a chart in the back so that you can put your own numbers in from the questions that you answered and how they tallied up. That gives you your health pattern. It gives you your health snapshot. It tells me when someone asks me, what does this mean? I tell them what it means. I tell them, I look at how things relate. So things relate from the muscle to the liver, and from the liver to the muscle. That was my biochemistry class. That's the first thing my biochemistry teacher ever said. And I went, what the heck does that mean? Mm-hmm. And so to put that in English is that there's nutrients that you eat that have to be processed by the liver, because the liver does the function of detox. It doesn't detox. And when it does the function of detox, it throws those toxins allegedly into the intestinal tract. If the intestinal tract is damaged for whatever reason, because it's only one lining of cells, then they can seep back through into the body and go back to the liver again. So when the liver gets overwhelmed, then that's when those toxins get stored in blood, brain, bone, and fat. And so it's just looking at that, and you can tell, when people answer and they fill that in. I always have somebody, when they do the book and they come back to me in regards to the chart, I always have them make sure that they do it so that I want them to see what the numbers are and where that's at, and not to have me do it. I will send it back to somebody and have them put the numbers in, highlight it, so they can see where things are not going so well over here and things are not going over here. How do they relate? And which one do I do first? So it's you can do it yourself and you can figure out what organ system you have to pay attention to. But likewise, there's always something that relates to something else. So you've got to make sure, where's that nice balance at, that everything can come down to a low priority. Because there's 3 sections. There's a low, moderate, and high priority. So that's what I do with that.
That's what I was going to ask you about next, is what those, how somebody uses those. How is it helpful to know that high, low, and medium priority?
Well, the reason why it's important for someone to know that, because then they know where to focus and start their health journey. They know they can go to a doctor, they can advocate for themselves. So I can go to a doctor, if it was me and I took it, I'd go to the doctor and it's I just got them filling out this questionnaire and got my health snapshot. And, I've got some issues going on that I want to talk to you about. So you talk coming from a point of knowledge, and you're stacking your knowledge, you're not being overwhelmed by it, and just say, can you, and I've been having these symptoms, and as somebody equated, in a review for this book, they said that it's like having a flat tire, that Western medicine cannot diagnose you until you have the flat tire. What this book does is it looks at where you need the patch or where you need the repair, where the tire's having that slow leak at. And so you can fortify and rejuvenate and restore. So you don't have to wait till you have that diagnosis. Same person asked me, what can you do for chronic fatigue and for myofibrosis? I said, you didn't read the book because what you got isn't what you got, and you've got to look at where you have inflammation. All those chronic illnesses and diseases have one thing in common, and that's inflammation. And so if you can figure out where the crux of that root of that problem is, then you can go to that root and you can fix the root. And then the rest of the body has a tendency to heal. And sometimes, you see when I'm working with somebody over a period of 3 to 6 months, sometimes that I can see changes really quick in 2 weeks. And then there's little things to deal with. So people need some acknowledgement and they need some accountability so that they can make those changes and they have some place to go that they can ask somebody where there's no judgment.
Yeah.
And that's important because a lot of people are so intimidated by their doctor that they don't want to ask things. People always used to say that to me. I don't want to ask my doctor this. He's going to yell at me.
Well,
and I said, get a different doctor.
In the Western medicine system, they don't tend to really like you to ask those questions.
Right. Well, because it would take them more than 7 minutes to answer them, because they only have you in a segment of a 10-minute segment to be in their office when you're doing a follow-up visit.
Yeah.
Unless they know it's going to be, much longer. So I work with people, in person in states that I have licensure with, and I also work with people virtually. And which I just got to doing a telemedicine conference with a doctor in Boston, and 15-minute consult, for a problem that I have with my hand, because I fell on it last October and it really isn't healing well. And so we wanted to take a better look at it with an MRI, and take, and get a better assessment so that we would know what the next step was. But that visit with him was by telemedicine, which is a big thing now.
It's great that we can have this technology now where we can
it is. That's why this is, for somebody who's, that is like at a long distance, that wants to get some answers, and they're not, they're not happy with the answers that they got, and they want to have better clarity. It's a good way to reach out and to connect, with somebody who has the education and the ability to read these questions in the chart that goes with it.
So your book, I can see how it gives, kind of roadmaps and processes for assessing your health. But what if there's a surprise? How do you get help with that?
Say that again.
What if there's a surprise? What if
a surprise
one morning?
Well, if there's some people have, when I look at this book and I do the health assessment and get the health snapshot, I don't like surprises anyway. So, I like, but somebody has a surprise, they're going, oh, I didn't realize that was that high. Then I would order outside testing. I don't like to guess. This is my first test. And then when I go to do any blood workup or other appropriate testing, imaging, or whether it is blood workup, or if I'm looking at, thyroid panels and things like that, I always tell people get the whole panel. If you have an opportunity, women should always get, when they do an estrogen panel for hormones, they should always do the full panel. They should never do, if they're only trying to look at one or two of the 7 estrogens, they should demand to have the whole panel, because you want to know how each one of those relate to each. How does number 1 get to number 7? And you can't do that unless you have the whole panel. Even for the thyroid too. Just an FYI.
Okay, good. Yeah. So what are the things that lead to optimal functioning for health and wellness? And then, that would also lead us to aging best.
Well, I think that aging should be graceful. And we're all going to age. That's inevitable. So when you're, back, I mentioned them before. I mentioned the 5 pillars of health. You have to have structures, function. If you don't have good structure, you're not going to have good function. That's important. What your thoughts are incredibly powerful. You got to get them under control, and you've got to get them so that you're focused and you're, so that they're not out of control, that you're ruminating, can't sleep at night, and that type of thing. Sleep position and sleep is so important for rejuvenating. Having, some people 8 hours is enough, 7 for other people. Some people only really need 5. It depends upon the person. And then exercise. If, people don't like to exercise, I tell people just to get out the front door and walk as fast as you can, as far as you can, for as long as you can, and do it minimally for 5 days a week. 7 would be better. And, because if you don't move, you get very, very tight, and my second patient that I first had when I was a student doctor said to me, she was 92, so I figured she knew something, that if you don't move, you're going to die. So you've got to get out and you got to move. And, something that people have total control of, they have control over everything that goes in their mouth. So if there's something that's unrecognizable, like I said before, the diet's got to be like, you got to clean it up. It isn't like you can't have something occasionally, but you really, in the very beginning, when you're dealing with your health and wanting to know where they're at, that's a key factor, because food is medicine.
Yes.
And you just putting it together correctly.
Yes, and what you're saying about moving, as people get older and they have all those aches and pains, or if they have all those aches and pains, the first thing is, it just hurts. I don't want to move. But what you find out is, if you do move, if you push yourself for that initial movement, then it gets better.
Right. Well, you have to start somewhere.
Yes.
And starting somewhere isn't, I have a client in Massachusetts who had a stroke. So anything that you do in touching her arm, she wants to kill you. And, and doing specific exercises I gave her. And she said, after I saw her, like the next month when I was passing through there, I said to her, well, how are you doing with that? She goes, I haven't done my exercises. They hurt too much. And I said, well, how about doing what you can do? Start small. You don't have to do everything, but the ultimate goal of what that looks like. And, people who don't have good, and they're not in good physical shape, go around the block, walk 3 houses and turn around and come back. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. What's embarrassing is that you're doing nothing. But if you do nothing, nothing changes. Health never goes out of fashion.
Well, except for that it usually gets worse if you do nothing.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. Then you end up being, more stationary and more situated. Like, then when you're looking at someone's health chart for that, you've got texture. You've got to look at, so what's really going on here? And so based upon what someone tells me and what I see on their chart, then I piece the pieces of those puzzle together, and then we make a plan from that to go from point A to point C.
Yeah.
That's the best thing to do.
Yes, you have to start.
You just have to start. You just have to if the water's cold, jump in it and get it over with. Just go.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, how can you, or how would you tell people to take responsibility for their health?
It's a conscious decision. One of the first questions I ask people is, if you knew what to do to be healthy, would you do it? If they say no, my conversation's over.
Yeah.
If they say yes, and they, oh, but I have a limitation of this. That's not what I ask. I just ask, if you knew what to do to be healthy, would you do it? Because there's always something that you can do to live longer, better, healthier, happier, better habits that hosts feel.
Exactly. Yes. If you're not willing to do anything, if you're not willing to change anything, nothing's going to change.
Well, a lot of people are very fearful and they're in denial. And so I was talking to a gentleman yesterday about that fear factor, about because they don't know. They don't know what if. And so many times when we have the what if, it keeps us paralyzed from any type of action at all. And sometimes you got to just move. You have to get outside your box, because your answers, everyone knows it's like, oh, it's not in my box. It's not in my realm. So sometimes those answers are out there, and you've got to go, you can see the dimmer switch out there, kind of like going, hey, come on this way, and then you go into investigate, and you're going like, wow, that wasn't that bad. And then you're like, okay, so if that worked, then, and sometimes you get to a certain point where you hit a plateau. You got to figure out, what do I do to change the plateau? And because sometimes people take alternative supplementation on their own and not know why they're taking that alternative supplementation. They think they're taking it for whatever reason, like, I want to have better digestion, blah, blah, blah. I want to go to sleep better, so I'm going to take melatonin, things like that. But they don't know why. And that they might be diluting a problem because they never did any testing to find out where they should start the health journey. And what they're big priority is. Because you can have more than one priority. One is bigger than the other. So that's why when you do the chart in this book, that shows that.
Yes. And
And
you do have to have knowledge of things, because there are things that are good, like a little bit is good, but if you take a lot, it's not good anymore. Like everybody thinks that, vitamin C is good, and it is. We need vitamin C. But my ex-husband, who really didn't believe in taking things, found out that he felt better when he took vitamin C. So he took a lot of vitamin C, and he developed deposits, some kind of, I think they were like calcium deposits.
Because he took a different form of calcium that might not have been to his chemistry of his body. Obviously, it didn't interact very well with it, and so high doses of vitamin C can be very good for you. But there's different kinds of vitamin C. Like there's different kinds of calcium. It's knowing the right kind of calcium somebody actually needs.
Yeah, that's the
so
point
I understand
I'm trying
that.
to make is you have to have the knowledge, or it may not work out the way you want it to.
Oh, for sure. Even when people go out and they have a glass of wine with dinner, if they do that, it's if the wine doesn't sync with the food, then you're not going to digest your food very well, because the wine's fermented, and sometimes with certain foods, and if it complements the foods, it can help you digest. And so some people can have a glass of wine, but when they have that second glass of wine, they no longer are digesting their food. They wake up with a headache and they feel horrible the next day. And they don't relate that second glass of wine was the thing that threw them over the top for being toxic. So it's just like when you're looking, people forget about looking at the foods that they eat and the such, and how they react to them. You can eat something today and have a reaction to it 5 or 6 days later, and you would never tie it in with the food that you ate today. So that's why doing some food reactivity testing would be important, to know that, and to know where to, so like, hey, I'm not supposed to eat this. And I have a very cool app that I recommend to people to use that takes foods out that you're not supposed to eat or that you're sensitive to. Like for me, I never eat turmeric. Turmeric is like not in my realm. It makes me feel ill when I have it. I feel like I have the flu when I eat turmeric or cumin, that whole group. And so I just never eat it. It's just something that's not my own. I can put that into this app and it will not give me any recipes that have that in it. It's very cool.
Great. So we're getting close to the end of our time, but if there is one thought that you'd like to leave with the audience from today's show, what would that be?
Wow. There's an Ayurvedic proverb, and it says that when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When diet is correct, medicine is of no need.
Yes. A good proverb.
It is a good proverb.
Before we go, can you tell the audience first, how they could connect with you, and then how can they get your book?
Well, they can connect with me. My website is healthteamnetwork.com. There's, I blog on there. I have my calendar on there for people who are on your show today and listening to this. I always offer a little better extra discount for if somebody wants to work with me from this show. With people getting the book from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other internet avenues, it's there. If you look it up, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? It looks like this. And, from going through the book, because people sometimes get confused. So what I do with people when they read something like this or want to have information is I make sense out of complex and challenging situations with a better way to better solutions, faster, and that are measurable. And so I get somebody from A to Z in a very quick way so that they get their answers done. They can get on with their life and live life as opposed to life living them.
Okay, and let's see. The book, you can go to getbook.at/sick, fat, and tired.
Yeah, I would tell them just go to Amazon.
Okay.
Because that will bring you to Amazon also. But
okay.
it is. Why are you sick, fat, and tired? You can find out now what your weakest and strongest link is. My name is Dr. Patricia Boulogne, and I am so thankful to have the opportunity to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. I know this is a topic that so many people are interested in, and they're interested in the health side of it, but the reward is, being, as you said, healthier, happier, and living longer. So
it's true. And what people have to understand is that when you look at having a disease, like for instance, I just read a statistic yesterday on Alzheimer's, that the average Alzheimer's patient, like directly or indirectly, spends $47,000 on that disease, 19,000 on diabetes. I mean, these are an epidemic. Chronic illness and disease is an epidemic in the United States.
And in general, people believe that these are diseases that I get, and, poor me, I have this, but they're both reversible.
They are. They are reversible. You can reverse them, you can manage them better, and then when you get healthier, your body has an opportunity to express 100% health. And that's your gift that you can give yourself.
Yes. So thank you, and I, recommend that you get Dr. Pat's book and, get healthy.
Get healthy, reach out, we'll have a chit chat, we'll get better acquainted, and I'll point you in the right direction.
Okay. So I have a quote for the audience to carry with them through their week, or with you through your week. And that is, the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, proper diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. And that was actually said by Thomas Edison. So, we've had this information for a while now, and maybe we should pay attention to it.
I think he said that in 1938, actually.
Yes.
Somewhere along that, but it's a great quote, and
yes.
it's more apropos now than it was when he said it.
Yes, definitely. So thank you for being here today and listening. We have another great show planned for next week. I will be interviewing Orlando Zuchetta. And Orlando's originally from New Zealand, and I met him a couple years ago at a training in Florida. And shortly after that training, he took a big life leap and totally changed the direction of his life. And so we're going to talk about, what his journey has been and what it's like to take that kind of a big leap and, have a totally new life. So join us next Tuesday, 3 p.m., and have a great week. I'm just going to say bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soulfire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.